All good?
Testing, testing. Welcome, good afternoon. We're getting started a few minutes late, but we promise to keep you on time. I am Dr. Sonia Toson. I am the Interim Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer at Kennesaw State University. So warm welcome and hooty hoo indeed. Hooty hoo! Love it when my people are here. I also want to pass it to Dr. Loretta Daniels to introduce herself.
Hi, Dr. Loretta Daniels. For those of you, she just gave that, the shout out to. I was with Kennesaw State University for like 20 years. So,
Hooty hoo!
yeah, hooty hoo. But yeah, thank you guys for coming, and this is going to be a fun session, a very fun session, because we want to get all of your ideas so that everyone in the room can learn from you.
So with that, just a very quick rundown. We're going to start off. Title of the session is, of course, Take a Stand on DEI. And what you see more frequently now is this acronym DE&I B. So we're certainly going to have a brief discussion about what DEI is, making sure that we're using some shared language. But we're really going to focus on the B today and belonging. So you'll hear us talk about, what belonging really is, what a welcoming and belonging environment looks like. You'll hear some statistics, some reasons, some research-born reasons that it's a very valuable thing for our organizations. And then that's the brief part of the program. We want to hear from you. So I want you to be thinking right now, how is DE&I B showing up in your organizations? What has been successful? What's worked? What secret weapon can you share with us today following our fireside chat and this theme of collaboration? And so because there are a number of us in the room and we want to hear from everybody, we're going to keep that to 60 seconds. So you got to give us your best, right? Quickly. And then we'll debrief a little bit, and this session will be yours. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I think we'll get started. Let's try. There we go. So taking a stand on I might need to be in a different, there we go. So let's talk about the spectrum of DE&I B. We hear about these letters, this acronym, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and then the B that you hear about is belonging. You also hear about welcoming environments. And so, what really is the difference between them? And I know that there's a good portion of the audience where this is sort of a preaching to the choir moment, but if you'll indulge me, let's make sure that for our session today, we're using shared language. So just definitionally, right? What are we looking at when we're looking at diversity, right? I like to keep it simple. Folks at KSU know I want to be straightforward. So when we talk about difference or diversity, we're really talking about difference. And we're talking about difference across a broad spectrum of things, right? We often hear about identities like race and ethnicity and gender, but it's also diversity of perspective. It's diversity of approach, right? If I'm going to code something, although I just learned in the fireside chat, that's not what we're really into anymore, but if I want to code something, my approach to coding it may be wholly different than someone else's. And so we need that rich difference in the room for a variety of reasons. It's that difference that will allow us to produce innovation and creative solutions to problems. You'll see on this spectrum, when we're missing that difference, it's because it may be because, let me be fair, it may be because there's some exclusion happening. And that's, of course, the portion of the spectrum where we don't want to be. Once we cross that threshold and there is representation, that's where we see that difference and that diversity in our organization. But we want to continue to journey up the steps and get to inclusion, right? And inclusion is where we don't just have representation in the room, right? Representation's pretty easy. It's factual, it's numerical, it's this. It's what we not so lovingly refer to as some of the checking of the box. But inclusion is where we take that rich difference in the room and actually do something with it. We listen to the different perspectives and identities that are in the space, and we value them. And that takes us to our last part of the spectrum. I won't say last, it's a journey, right? It's never over. But belonging and welcoming. Because there's a way that I might include you that there still isn't a valuing. It's still doesn't feel great to be in the space. So we want to get to an environment where there is a true sense of belonging, right? A true sense of community. I'm proud of my KSU community today because we're all loud and proud with our hooty hoos and our KSU. That means we have a sense of community, and it might not be perfect, right? Like any family, but those are some of the things you start to see when there's a sense of community. People tend to get stuck a little bit on this inclusion and belonging. Like, well, what's the difference? I included you. Of course you belong because I included you. I mean, you're here, right? And it's not so straightforward. So I tend to give an example, right? My example is a football example. So for the non-sports folks in the room, indulge me. But I mean, it's playoff time, it's championship time. Football is great, right? So let's say we're all on a football team, right? When I say football team, we play pickup football, flag football, whatever you want to call it, after school, right? And we do that by our neighborhood. We all live in the same neighborhood, right? And we are competitive about our flag football. We try to beat the next neighborhood over, right? And so, inclusion, right? Imagine a situation where we're getting our team together and we're picking sides, and we're at the park down the street from school, but before we get to our houses, right? And who walks by but Dr. Daniels? We're gonna call her Loretta for this example. Who walks by but Loretta? And what do we say, right? We're in inclusion territory. I say to Jamie, I was like, well, there's Loretta, right? I mean, we probably should ask her to play, right? I know my mom's gonna be mad at me if I don't ask her. So what do you think? Should we ask her, right? And Jamie's like, yeah, my mom will be mad too. Let's ask her, right? I mean, that's just probably what we should do. She's walking by, she sees us playing. We're gonna include Loretta. So we ask her to play. Hey, Loretta, we got this game. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can play, And we look a little bit like these fine children here, right? You see them with the football, you see them kind of smiling, but do they look excited to have Loretta play, right? Especially my little sis right here. You see her? I don't know if that's a smile or a smirk, right? But they look like, hey, we're happy you're here, we're gonna have you play, right? But there's a difference between that. So we've included Loretta. She's there, she's at the game, we asked her, she said yes. Boom, we did it, right? There is a difference between that and belonging and a sense of welcoming, right? So same scenario, we're getting the game together, and who walks by but Loretta? And so same thing, I go to Jamie and I go, oh my God, is that not Loretta? That's Loretta, right? Loretta Daniels? Like the amazing quarterback, like Loretta. And she's like, yeah, I heard about her. Like last week, she was playing for the other neighborhood. She had like 4 touchdowns, and one of them was on a trick play. Like she ran the thing in. Like, we gotta get her. If we get her, we are going to win. And I was like, I know, I heard the same thing. So we gotta ask her. Do you wanna ask her? I'm a little nervous. You wanna ask her? So Jamie's like, yeah, I'll ask her. And so she goes to Loretta, and Loretta's like, she says, hey, I know there are a lot of teams that you could play for. I know you were on another team last week, but we know how good you are. If you would just please consider playing with us, we would love to have you. We know we can win with you, just if you could. I know you have options, but will you play with us today? And Loretta says, but did y'all even just see the difference in Loretta's yes this time? She has a whole different perspective. And so, not only that, but how do Jamie and I feel? How do the rest of us feel when Loretta says yes, right? You're like, yes, we are going to win. Now, that's the difference, right, in sort of the welcoming piece. But the sense of belonging, what happens after Loretta gets there and she's on the team? What happens then? The sense of belonging comes in when we say, okay, thank you for playing with us. We know you know what's going on and what to do. What do you think? What plays should we run? And Loretta's like, listen, we need to do a red 52 quarterback sneak, whatever she says. And we're like, cool. We know what you know what you're doing. We're giving you the ball. We do. She does her thing. We win, and everybody looks like this. She now has a sense of belonging because we included her, but we welcomed her. We were excited. We celebrated her being here. And then we empowered her. We know you're talented. We gave you the ball. You did your thing, right? And whether we win or lose, that sense of belonging is lasting and makes a difference in how she plays and how we play and our victory in the game. So that's my little example to sort of frame belonging. We'll leave the football field now, and I'll pass it to Loretta to tell us what that looks like in organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You're good with
So she just kind of explained to you all what it looks like, to belong as a child. I want to share a story with you of what it looks like to belong as an adult, right, when you are promoted into a position. So I work for a position for a company. I was promoted to a C-suite position. But what happened is when I came into the room, only one person in that room, and we're talking about the boardroom table now, where you've got maybe about 15 individuals around the table, a couple of women, mostly white men, and I'm the only black person there, and a female being black. And so I walked in feeling all confident, right? Because I know what I can do. And there's only one other person in the room who knows what I can do. That's that person who promoted me. And so when I'm around the room, everyone's looking like, oh, perhaps she's the quota. That happens, right? She's the quota. But I know I'm not the quota because I know what I did. I brought in innovation where I increased revenue about 20% just from looking at an operational procedure that made sense, right? That everybody else kind of left there. I knew what I brought around the table. But when I was with these people every day, I didn't feel like I belonged. They were all going out to lunch together. Did they ask Loretta? No. They all went out together, happy hour. Did they ask Loretta? No. So it's really important to know that you can be included, like she said, but you have to feel that you belong. So I was strong enough to stay at the table. And after I was there for a few months, everyone knew why I was at the table. I brought value. And so it's really important when you promote someone and you allow them to be at the table, help them to belong. Because in most cases, they're at the table because they belong, right? So here's what I want to share with you. It's so important for you to be able to create an environment for belonging. It is just not to make me feel good so that I want to come to work with you, but it's also going to benefit the company. Someone said to me about a couple of weeks ago, we're trying to get people involved in DEI and they're just over it. How can you be just over DE&I? The reason you become just over it because you don't understand the value. Companies need to know that it's about bringing profits to them, bringing innovation to them. It's not just about filling up the room with diverse candidates, right? So that's what you have to look at. When I took a look at a couple of studies, 73% of those who conducted or were part of the studies stated that fostering a sense of belonging was really important to their organizational success. Another 93% said a sense of belonging drives organizational performance. So we have to think about belonging and inclusion and equity and diversity as a strategy, as a part of what we have to have. I've developed so many strategic plans, and if they don't include having a diverse group of people, you're probably not going to advance. The next one here is another, try to go back here. 50%, when you have a diverse population who feels that they belong, it's a reduction in turnover. For all of us who are in positions of managing a budget, we know how important it is to reduce turnover. It costs to have turnover. 167% said their net promoter score increased. By that amount, means they're more valuable to their customers because of diversity. Because diversity and belonging brings about revenue. And then finally, 75% decrease in sick days. When people feel just a little sick, but they're going to an environment they feel like they belong, they're more apt to come and to stay. So that's what I want you all to see. This is not just about,
How recent these numbers, and where did the last one come from?
Deloitte as well.
Deloitte.
Yes. Yes, it's a July, I think, study. Yes, and I can share that with you. I'll give you my card, yes. So that's where we are with the sense of belonging. Right now, what I want for you all to do is we're going to form a line here. I want you to come up, each person, to give your idea and a strategy for everyone in the room to say, how do we make sure that we are creating a sense of belonging in our organization. And I want you all to learn from everything that's going to be said today. Okay? And then we'll debrief a little bit.
Who's first?
There we go. So, what is your organization doing right now to advance belonging? Got to have the first one come up. Mm-hmm.
So I guess in general, just even hearing the stories that you all told, the word that really stood out to me was value.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what takes you from just inclusion
Yes.
to belonging.
Yes.
Because you know the value you bring.
Yes.
It's your team and your leadership knowing the value you bring to basically build that sense of belonging. So I think any way that we can highlight, to your point, the value and benefit that DE&I brings to an organization will allow it to not just be a chore or a box to check.
Right.
That was the word that just kept coming to mind. The reason why the football analogy, it made sense, is because they saw you as a valuable citizen, right? And even with your example from a, just a leadership perspective, value is so important to articulate and show the benefit, right?
And you have to get to the data part of that.
That's right.
Right.
Data-driven.
Right, data-driven. You have to use the data to show it. It can't be just a kumbaya moment, right?
Yes.
You know, we all love each other. It's got to be about driving the data.
And if I may, I'm actually expounding your point a bit, but I'm going to be a bit controversial because
Yes.
both you all, the three examples you all mentioned, are about people who are one confident and who are somewhat successful.
Yes.
So to me, belonging is regardless of that. I'm going to make you feel like you belong so you can be your best.
Yes.
And when you do that, it's easy to take the star quarterback and say, oh yeah, I won her. Oh, yes, girl, or yes, man, or whatever. It's easy to say that, hey, I've got
point.
this position, I know I'm valuable, I got promoted, I'm cool. But what about the average team member who is below that, that's right, who is below that line and just, oh, I'm doing what I need to do, my performance review is okay, I'm not gonna get fired, but I don't feel like I really belong here. No one's seeing me for me. To me, that's the crux of belonging without a doubt.
Which speaks to how we see value and what we're calling valuable. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
One of the things that we do in our organization is kind of a ritual to give people that may not kind of self-promote themselves.
Oh, the recording can't pick it up.
Is we do this thing called me in a moment.
Hang on one second.
I
We need
tell
you
you
to
what, why don't you
step
share
over.
that idea there, 'cause we're recording.
Cause and we can't hear. We missed all the good stuff right there.
Okay. So one of the rituals, I think rituals are important to getting people to get a sense of belonging. One of the things that we do is do this me in a minute, and it highlights everyone within a team or within cross organization. So you get to know them kind of personally as well as professionally, hear about their career and allow them to talk about some of the wins that they've had. And so you never know who's in the room. So the next time they're up for an opportunity, someone has already heard something about them, we've learned about them, we've gotten to know them, and they have that sense of belonging because we're a bigger, community.
Yep, that's
love
good.
that.
I like that. Excellent. And another point is, when you want to create a sense of belonging, you want to not have someone feel that they don't belong, it's sharing their credibility as well. Newsletters to promote, here's this new person starting, here's some of their interests, here's what they bring to the table. So then, it allows someone to have an affinity with you, some similarities with you. So someone else come up and share, please.
I find on that part, while the next person's making their way forward, that when we share in that way, it also helps us build community organically through cross connections. So if you say, I went to University of Illinois for my undergrad, oh my God, you did too, you know what I mean? And so then you start to not see someone as so different,
Yes.
even though you may have experienced them that way before. So I love that. Me in a minute. Oh, I got it.
Next idea, share. Thank you.
Awesome.
At Amazon, we have a filter for if you need a mentor that they actually started where you can filter based off of essentially belonging.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for someone who maybe you just started at the organization, you changed departments, but you want a mentor who's from Atlanta. You want a mentor that has like a same ethnic background as yourself, or, you know, whatever life stage you're at. For legal reasons, you can't ask about, you know, race, but there's creative ways to ask about their interest. Where I think we should be taking it a step further is we all want, you know, diversity retention, and I think we need to start at day one, which is the onboarding process.
Yes.
So not waiting till someone's done, you know, 2+ years with the company and now they want a mentor because they want to get to that next stage, but actually saying in your first 90 days, it should be part of the process that you have a mentor that can help you with that belonging.
Yeah, excellent idea.
Yeah. We so have to move
Yes.
from orienting and orientation to onboarding. It's a totally different thing. Onboarding is where the secret sauce is. Anybody can show you how to get your password and your key card, but the secret sauce, the mentorship. And what I love about sort of matching programs and filtering programs like that too is I can find someone with a shared identity in some way, but I can also find someone that doesn't share identity. So I can learn and grow and stretch, you know? Love it.
Yeah, and it sets the tone, right? It sets the tone right up in the front saying, this, we care about belonging. We care about making the connection.
Yeah, signals are important.
Go ahead. Hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Richard Hicks. I'm with Inspire EDU. And we work a lot around storytelling. The work that we do within the community, where we work with the underserved community to provide digital access and technology and training to them, I like for my team to tell the stories around what touched your heart, what is you know, what challenges you had in life, and show the human side of things, because they need to do that in order to do nonprofit work. And we actually went a step further as to hire some of the families that have gone through our program, because that also brings that sort of level of hubris down to say, hey, we're all in this together, and some of the families here may not have the education that you have, but they have the passion for wanting to be successful. So we've been going a lot from the humanistic storytelling, and then each of them have connected through those pieces.
That's great. There's so much power in storytelling, right? Because it does make that connection. Anyone else in the room have that kind of experience? Share it. Why don't you come and share it with us?
You can't
Yeah.
deprive the recording now.
So, hey, everybody. Sorry to turn my back to you all. Yeah, I mean, bottom line, not an example per se, but storytelling really is an old school way of doing things, right? I mean, going back to theater and all of that, how do we actually get things together? And even music is a form of communication and storytelling. So I think that storytelling allows us to have the backstory, and the backstory is what gives us the opportunity to actually feel like we can connect with someone and belong. Once we know someone's backstory, we break down the barrier to know them, which is, oh, you seem kind of like you had that little face going on here. You always seem kind of angry. And then I find out that something actually happened traumatic in your life. And it's, wow, you know what? I'm going to help her or him not have that angry look. It removes the barrier. So the storytelling with the backstory, to me, is a part of this whole culture of belonging. But how often do we actually take the time to do the backstory? We don't. We're too busy. We got things to do. Or, okay, she has that look. She doesn't want to be disturbed. I'm going to leave her alone. She'll kind of scared. We don't take the time. So it's really intentional. It's discipline around it. In my former organization, we had a very much of intentionality around the discipline of asking. We, nothing personal, we worked a lot with McKinsey around doing some things, and they have a phenomenal program they're doing around Black leadership executives, around what all that looks like. And that aspect of really identifying the discipline to ask is huge, but not just ask, but to listen and then to put it into action. So that last piece, the action piece, is the huge piece. To remember it, not just hear the backstory, get the background, and then, oh, you forget about it next time you see them. You got to do something with it, which is allyship. I believe you mentioned that, right? And advocacy. So anyway, that's kind of my play. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Going up.
So this is not one of those. I just wanted to add about the story piece.
Yeah, would you please come here, because we're recording it so that we can listen later. Thank you.
Much like Dr. Toson, I also So there is, for anyone that is looking for a great storytelling resource, UNESCO has story circles, which I'm sure many of us are familiar with, but for those, I was not familiar until fairly recently. As part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion at Kennesaw State, we lived out story circles. And story circles are this opportunity for people to talk about a time you felt fearful or a time you were excited. And when you tell your story, one person speaks pretty quickly, no one else responds. You just tell your story. And then at the end, you actually go back and tell each person what one thing you remember from their story. And it is really, it sounds very, very simple. It is really incredibly powerful because you're not getting my commentary on it gives us a chance to connect later because we can't go, oh, me too then, right? And so it's this really fantastic tool. If you look on UNESCO, they have that available and you can actually download the whole kit. And then you've got it as a resource to be able to facilitate that within a small group. We did it online. We did it in the middle of COVID online. And so it was something that we could even do virtually. And so it's a really fantastic tool. It's not our thing, but I'm going to count this since I'm already up here as my thing.
And now, because you said it out loud in front of all these people, we'll bring it back. Thank you, Jamie.
It's wonderful. It is a really great tool. So take advantage.
Thank you.
Okay, I am so upset because I've only caught the last 5 minutes of this fantastic forum. To everyone here, you all rock, really. My name is Damon Burton. I'm in cybersecurity. I do sales, client-facing roles full-time, but my passion really is impacting DEI, impacting our communities where we see more women, more people of color, black and brown, get involved in cybersecurity. For those of you all who don't know, there's a tremendous underrepresentation of those groups in cyber, combined with a tremendous shortage of talent. At any point in time, you can look at any major city, you can see tens of thousands of unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs. The question is, how do we go about solving for that? We have to look at it differently. And one of the things that I have done most recently, December of last year, I joined the board of a nonprofit organization whose mission is aligned with my beliefs. It's called GCC. It's designed to really impact DEI within cybersecurity. But one of the things that really struck me to come here and have this quick conversation with the room and the panel is I really believe storytelling is everything. I'm in sales, so I know that storytelling is impactful. It gravitates people's imagination and their attention. But when you're talking about trying to impact DEI, you have different stakeholders. So you may have a different story, let's say, for stakeholders at the boardroom. But there's a different story that you have to tell to, let's say, the community, right? What is their why? How do you make it cool, if you will? How do you make it fashionable and how do you make it believable, attractive, right? At the end of the day, you're doing it for both parties, but perhaps what you're presenting and how you present the story may be a little bit different. One of the things I thought about is in order to really impact DEI in, let's say, Atlanta or any major metropolitan city, I want to do it in mass. I want to do it where it's scalable, it's repeatable. So I look at what do businesses do when they want to basically drive revenue? You know, they try to put the cool factor on their product. And my thing was, I want to come up here and ask, does anybody know of an organization that can help nonprofits, right, with putting out the greater messaging to the communities where it creates this adoption and awareness, where all of a sudden they're open to having a conversation? Because what I'm looking for is not so much having a one-on-one intimate conversation with an individual, that's fine, but how can we get hundreds of women and black and brown, thousands in a particular city at one time, where they're going, hey, look, we're interested in making a career change. We want to know more about what the path forward looks like. And so I think if we can create that greater awareness and understanding and make it attractive, all of a sudden we become, right, I'm like a magnet with the opportunity. So if y'all have any suggestions or ideas, let me know. And then the final thing I'll ask is, when it comes to really advancing, you know, DEI within an organization, I have heard of some leaders, because it starts at the top, really MBOing that for their leadership, making sure that it's a metric that's being measured. And all of a sudden now, because it's top of mind, they're getting comped on it, they embed it, right? In the absence of that, maybe not. Have y'all found that to be the case where you all work, whether it be in the past or now? And if not, if you found other ways where it stays top of mind and has longevity despite what's happening in the economy, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for posing that question. And that's some good work. I'm just finishing developing a certificate program about leadership, and one of the components is DEI. And what I teach is it has to come from the top, and it has to be. Unfortunately, we have to force that data. We have to make sure that the metrics are there. And so when it starts at the top, you have to trickle it down to every level of leadership. Not just the top level, but the mid-level and the frontline level. Everyone needs to know about those stats, and everyone needs to be accountable. So when that person, that VP or anyone is reporting their revenue goals, right? Where are we this month toward our revenue goals? Where are we this month toward our turnover rates? All of that, DEI needs to be on the table too. That needs to be a strategy that's reported every month or every week with everything else. Then the accountability and ownership is there.
I would concur with that and pick up and say very similar at KSU. So I serve on the cabinet as our as a vice president, not just a chief diversity officer. And I don't say that to be arrogant. It's a lot of work, y'all. Thank you. But that's important first and foremost, and it allows me to hold my fellow cabinet members and our president accountable. So I took the time in January of this year to train all of them in DEI, but specifically in inclusive strategic planning. That means they all have strategic plans and exactly what Dr. Daniels is talking about, we can live. So I'm going to them now to check progress on their plans. It's report card time. I know we only have 2 minutes. I want to catch this last comment, and then we'll say a final word. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, how y'all doing? Cameron Johnson. I'm a senior business information security officer at Warner Brothers Discovery. I think that working in entertainment, we are a bit diverse by nature, and I think that Warner Brothers does a really good job of owning that, building it programmatically into their infrastructure by, creating the opportunities, which actually ended me up here for free, kind of just finding out about the BRGs and getting involved, and then also creating the space for adopting, you can take a week of vacation time to go support and volunteer. They give you a whole week of time to do that. So they create many spaces to get involved and to find and become and just kind of adopt your diverse self. And so there's a lot of space for that, and there's a lot of exemplification of that as well. And then on the belonging side, I think they do a good job of, creating those face-to-face interactions. We used to do coffee chats where we would just meet random people. And once you know folks, it's easier to belong with them because I was a remote worker. I came in during COVID. I didn't know anybody, so I didn't feel comfortable emailing random folks about asking them for help. So things like the coffee chat helped me feel like I was belonging, and all the mixers helped me feel like I was starting to belong in the community. And they do that on on an interpersonal level, and they also create storytelling forums as well to do that from a BRG perspective too. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I
Go
love
Owls.
that.
Me too.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank
I love
you.
those chats. That's a whole different, kind of workshop.
It is.
How do you create a sense of belonging in a remote environment? Because you don't have to see them all the time. So this conversation could go on and on. I really appreciate all of your feedback. I know we just got a sign to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, I will summarize. Let's summarize our takeaways. I'm going to do 3 words that stood out for me. I probably can't keep it to that. I'm a lawyer. 3 concepts that stood out to me that came through in everyone's useful tips for us, and that is value. That is the power of storytelling. That was the 3 words. That should have been 1. And intentionality. That's what really is resonating with me right now. What about you, Dr. Daniels?
To me, it's ownership. Creating that space. When you are forced to, there's a policy. You're forced to introduce yourself to someone, to have coffee. Those things turn into great relationships, right? So those are things that I took away from that. And thanks so much for all that you guys have shared. Appreciate you. Give yourselves a hand.